To Joe Biden's comments. It's the fourth time he said specifically the US would defend Taiwan if it were invaded, attacked by China. Now, previously we've had it sort of clarified, but he was asked, there was back and forth this interview. It's pretty clear, isn't it, while we have the official strategic ambiguity in terms of China, Taiwan and whatever happens there, what we now know is the current US president is saying if China, specifically if China attacks Taiwan, then the US will come to their defence. Is this the piece on top, if you like, of strategic ambiguity?
I think, and I'd agree with an awful lot of op-ed ink that has been spilled on this in the last 72, 96 hours, Tom. I'd agree with the consensus there that strategic ambiguity appears to be over, which is a precarious situation. Let's be honest about it. The thing about strategic ambiguity is that it was a stable equilibrium for a long time. China could live with a policy of, yes, it's on the law books in the US-China Relations Act that the US would defend, US-Taiwan Relations Act that the US would defend Taiwan, but also at the same time agreeing to the so-called one China policy. Now, right, the supply and demand here, that's a signal by the US that China looks at and says, well, we don't feel that, we won't escalate our claims on Taiwan because there's this one, they're recognising the one China policy at the same time as they're talking about defending Taiwan if it were ever to come under attack. So that ambiguity worked well for both sides. Now, the difficulty is that China is no longer being as ambiguous, if you will, about its designs on Taiwan, and moreover, not that pretty unambiguous with respect to a lot of other domains. So the US feels it has to come off the sidelines, but where this new equilibrium lands, Tom, it's a much more precarious one than the one we're in. But I don't think Biden really has much of a choice. The signal he needs to send to allies like us, like Japan, about protecting US interests, particularly on the back of what we're seeing in Ukraine. So we're in a new normal. It is, as many commentators say, Tom, a more dangerous normal than the one we were in for much of the post-World War II period. But that's it, I'm afraid. And anybody that I think thinks they know where we might land on this in 10 years, I just think that's incredibly speculative, other than to say much more uncertain and precarious than we've been in the past. And
yeah, I think it's a really good point around the fact that China has clearly changed in its posture, at the very least, not to mention the recent exercises and missiles, yes, albeit they weren't armed, but towards Taiwan. That's a ratcheting up, which is a good point. Simon Jackman from the University of Sydney. Great to get your thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.